Your mind is like an unending storm, a whirlwind of thoughts spinning faster than you can catch them. A constant flood of opinions, memories, and worries, all demanding your attention at once. It's like living inside a crowded, noisy room with no exit, where the echoes of yesterday collide with the fears of tomorrow. You try to focus, to stay present, but your mind pulls you in every direction at once. And no matter how hard you try to silence it, the noise never stops. But what if I told you that you don't have to fight this storm? That beyond the chaos, beyond the endless stream of thoughts, there is something far greater waiting for you. A silence so deep, so powerful, that it feels like stepping into an entirely new world. A stillness that doesn't just quiet the mind, but reveals something profound. An awareness that has always been there, hidden beneath the noise, waiting for you to remember. Think about it. How many moments of your life have slipped away unnoticed because your mind was somewhere else? How many conversations have been half-lived because you were too focused on a task left unfinished? How many times have you stood before something breathtaking? A sunset, the sound of rain, the warmth of another's laughter, only to realize later that you weren't truly there, that you were lost inside your own head, trapped in a loop of past regrets and future anxieties. But here's the truth. Life isn't happening in your thoughts. It's happening now, in this moment. And the more you live in the storm of your mind, the more you miss what's right in front of you. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you truly experienced the present moment? Not just thought about it, not analyzed it, but fully lived it. When was the last time you allowed yourself to just be, without judgment, without comparison, without distraction? For many, the answer is painful. It has been too long. We have become prisoners of our own thoughts, trapped in an endless cycle of overthinking, always somewhere other than where we are. But it doesn't have to be this way. You don't need years of training, special skills, or a perfect environment to break free. All you need is the willingness to try. Because once you have tasted true silence, once you have experienced the stillness beneath the noise, you will never want to go back. So take a deep breath. Feel the air moving through your body. Right here, right now, there is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to fix, just this moment, this breath, this awareness. Now imagine this. You are standing in the middle of a vast forest. The trees sway gently in the wind, the birds sing, and a stream flows softly in the distance. But you don't hear any of it. Your mind is somewhere else, tangled in worries about what happened yesterday, about what might happen tomorrow. This is what so many of us experience every day. Life is happening all around us, but we are too lost in thought to notice. But why does this happen? Why does the mind insist on talking to us nonstop, like a radio that refuses to be turned off? The answer is simple. Because it has been trained to believe that thinking is the same as living. That by constantly analyzing, planning, and judging, it is somehow protecting you. But in reality, it is keeping you trapped. Trapped in a loop of worry, regret, and distraction. Trapped in a cycle that drains your energy, clouds your focus, and steals your peace. And the worst part? The noise is exhausting. You've felt it. That mental fatigue from replaying the same worries over and over again. That weight on your chest, that tightness in your shoulders, that feeling of being constantly behind, no matter how much you do. It's not just in your head. It's in your body, in your breath, in the way you move through the world. but there is a way out. And it begins with silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. Because silence is not about blocking out the world. It is about tuning into something deeper. It is about stepping beyond the constant chatter of the mind and into the simplicity of now. Think about how much of life we miss because we are distracted. How many smiles go unnoticed because we are caught in thought? How many sunsets go unseen because our eyes are glued to screens? How many moments of joy slip away because we are too busy replaying the past or worrying about a future that hasn't even happened yet? Silence matters because it brings us back to what is real. It is the doorway to presence. And presence is the only place where life truly happens. Your mind loves to live in time. It wants to dissect the past and predict the future. But the truth is, the only reality is here, right now. Everything else, the past, the future, exists only as thoughts. The noise in your head creates a world of what-ifs and if-onlys, pulling you away from the simplicity of what is. But silence brings you back. It is like stepping out of a crowded, chaotic room and into the open air, where everything feels clearer, lighter, more alive. Silence is not empty. It is full of life, full of clarity, full of everything you've been searching for in the noise. In silence, you hear your intuition. The quiet voice that is always there, but so often drowned out by the chaos of overthinking. In silence, you feel the connection between yourself and the world, the connection that has always been there, but has been masked by mental noise. And here's the beautiful thing. Silence does not demand perfection. It does not ask you to force your mind to be completely still. It simply asks you to be aware, to notice the chatter without being consumed by it, to step back and observe your thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky, letting them come and go without clinging to them. This is why silence matters. Not because it eliminates thought, but because it frees you from being controlled by it. Silence is not about escaping life. It is about returning to it. It is about waking up to the richness of the present moment, hearing the song of a bird, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, noticing the rhythm of your own breath, and realizing that in this moment, you need nothing more. Silence is not an absence. It is a homecoming. And once you have tasted true stillness, even for a moment, you will understand its power. You will understand that silence is not just a break from the noise. It is the space where life unfolds in its purest form. It is the space where you rediscover who you are. Your mind is a relentless storm, isn't it? A whirlwind of thoughts, judgments, and endless chatter that never seems to rest. It's like being trapped in a room filled with 100 voices, each one pulling you in a different direction, never allowing you a moment of peace. Even when the world around you is still, your mind is not. It jumps from memory to worry, from regret to anticipation, weaving stories that keep you disconnected from the only thing that truly matters, this moment. But what if I told you that this storm, this constant noise, doesn't have to define you? That beneath all the chaos, there exists a silence so profound, so absolute, that it can transform the way you experience life itself? Think about how many moments have slipped through your fingers unnoticed. A conversation with a loved one where you were too distracted to truly listen. A sunset so breathtaking, yet lost to the endless replay of past mistakes in your mind. Or worse, those rare quiet moments when everything was perfectly fine. But instead of enjoying them, you were too busy worrying about a future that hadn't even arrived yet. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly felt present? Not just thinking about the present, not analyzing it, but actually experiencing it fully, without judgment, without comparison. When was the last time you simply existed, without your mind pulling you forward or dragging you back? For most, the answer is unsettling. Because the truth is, we have become prisoners of our own thoughts, trapped in a never-ending conversation with ourselves, a cycle of noise that drowns out the richness of life itself. But it doesn't have to be this way. Because in the next few moments, we are going to explore something profound. We are going to step outside the storm, outside the noise, and into something far more powerful. A silence so deep, it doesn't just quiet your mind. It reveals the truth of who you are. And the best part? You don't need years of practice. You don't need special training. All you need is the willingness to step beyond the noise, beyond the illusion, and experience what has been waiting for you all along. Because once you taste true silence, once you see what it reveals, you will never want to go back to the storm. So take a deep breath, let everything else fade away, and let's begin. Imagine standing in the middle of a vast, untouched forest. The trees sway gently in the wind, their leaves whispering secrets only the still can hear. The birds are singing, their melodies weaving through the air like a gentle invitation to presence. A small stream flows nearby, its waters moving effortlessly, without hesitation, without resistance. But you don't hear any of it, because your mind is somewhere else, lost in a conversation about yesterday's regrets, tangled in worries about tomorrow's uncertainties. You are surrounded by beauty, by life in its purest form, but you are not here. You are in your mind, wrapped in a fog of thoughts, missing the very thing unfolding in front of you. And this is how most of us live. Life happens all around us, yet we are too distracted, too caught up in our own narratives to truly experience it. But why? Why does the mind do this? Why does it feel the need to talk to us non-stop, like a radio that never turns off? It's because your mind has mistaken thinking for living. It believes that by analyzing, judging, and planning, it is keeping you safe. That if it just works hard enough, it can control life, anticipate every outcome, avoid every mistake. But in reality, it's keeping you trapped in a loop of worry, of regret, of endless distraction. And this is the cost of a noisy mind. You are here, but you are not truly present. You are alive, but you are not truly living. And worst of all, it is exhausting. You know this feeling. That mental fatigue that comes from replaying the same arguments, the same doubts, the same fears over and over again. It drains your energy. It clouds your focus. And most of all, it steals your peace. But here's the truth. No one tells you. Silence is the antidote, not the absence of sound. Number two, silence is the stillness of the mind. It is the space where thoughts lose their grip, where presence is no longer a struggle, where you finally hear the world, not through the filter of your thoughts, but as it truly is. Think about how much of life we miss because we are distracted. How many sunsets go unseen because our eyes are glued to screens? How many smiles pass us by because we are lost in thought? How many moments of joy slip through our fingers because we are too busy reliving the past or fearing the future? Silence matters because silence is the doorway to presence. And presence? That is the only place where life actually happens. Your mind loves to live in time. It replays the past, rewriting old conversations, dwelling on regrets. It races into the future, constructing endless scenarios, preparing for things that may never happen. But the present, the now, that is where life is actually unfolding. That is where reality exists. Everything else, the past, the future, it exists only in your mind. The noise in your head is a world of what ifs and if onlys, pulling you away from the simplicity of what is. But silence brings you back. It's like stepping out of a crowded room into open air. Everything feels clearer, lighter, more alive. Because silence isn't just peace. Silence is clarity. In silence, you can finally hear the truth. You can hear your intuition, the quiet voice that is always speaking, yet often drowned out by the chaos of overthinking. You can feel the connection between yourself and the world, a connection that has always been there, but hidden beneath layers of mental noise. And in that silence, you realize something profound. You are not separate from life. You are life. The boundaries you think exist between you and the world, they are illusions, constructs of a busy mind. And the moment you let go of the noise, even for just a moment, you will feel it. You will feel the profound stillness that has always been there, waiting for you to notice. And here's the beautiful part. Silence does not demand perfection. It does not ask you to stop thinking entirely. It only asks for awareness. It asks you to notice the chatter without being consumed by it, to step back, to observe your thoughts like leaves floating down a river, letting them come, letting them go, without clinging to them. This is why silence matters. Not because it eliminates thought, but because it frees you from being controlled by it. So why does silence matter? Because it gives you back your life. It gives you the ability to be here, now, in the only moment that truly exists. It is not just about quieting the mind. It is about waking up to the sound of a bird, the warmth of the sun, the rhythm of your own breath. It is about realizing that this moment, right now, is enough. Silence is not an escape. It is a homecoming, a return to the beauty of life as it is. And once you taste that stillness, even for a moment, you will understand its power. Because silence is not just a break from the noise. It is the space where life unfolds. There is something extraordinary that happens when you allow yourself to step beyond the noise. A shift so subtle, yet so powerful, that it can change the way you experience everything. It's in that moment, when the endless chatter of the mind begins to quiet, that you feel something you may not have felt in years. Stillness. Not just the absence of sound, not just a pause between thoughts, but a deep, profound stillness that doesn't come from outside of you, but from within. A stillness that has always been there, waiting for you to notice it, waiting for you to remember. Because that's the truth, isn't it? This silence, this presence, this peace, it was never missing. You didn't lose it. You didn't have to earn it. It was always there. It is the mind that covered it, that filled every empty space with noise, that convinced you that silence was something foreign, something difficult to find. But silence isn't something you find. It's something you return to. The moment you stop clinging to thoughts, stop identifying with the stories running through your head, stop believing that every idea your mind throws at you is absolute truth. That is when silence finds you. Not as something you create, but as something that has always been there, beneath the surface of everything. And in that silence, something shifts. It's as if the entire world slows down. The air feels lighter, colors seem brighter, every sound becomes clearer, yet less intrusive. The weight you've been carrying, the heaviness of worry, of overthinking, of endless mental noise, it begins to lift. Not because the world has changed, but because you are no longer lost in the storm. You begin to see things as they are, not as your mind tells you they should be, not as your fears insist they might be, but simply, purely as they are. And for the first time in a long time, maybe even for the first time in your life, you feel free. Free from the constant pull of the past, free from the anxious grasp of the future, free from the illusion that you are somehow separate from this moment. Because that's the greatest trick the mind ever played, convincing you that you are separate from now. But you are not. You were never separate. You were always here. The problem is, you forgot how to be here. Think about how much energy you've spent living anywhere but the present. Reliving old conversations, replaying old mistakes, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, planning, analyzing, obsessing, and in the process, missing the only thing that has ever truly existed, this moment. And what's even more incredible, the moment you allow yourself to step into silence, even for just a second, you realize something profound. You don't need to chase peace. You don't need to struggle for it. Don't need to fight for it. Don't need to figure it out. Because peace was never something outside of you. It was never something distant, something you had to work toward. Peace was always what you are. It is your natural state. It is what remains when all the noise fades away. It is what exists when you let go of the illusion that you must constantly do, think, analyze, and control. And when you touch that peace, when you feel that stillness within you, something extraordinary happens. Your mind, the same mind that once felt like a chaotic storm, begins to soften. It no longer controls you. Thoughts come and go, but they do not define you. Worries appear, but they do not consume you. And for the first time, you understand that you are not your thoughts. You never were. You are the space beneath them, the awareness behind them, the presence that watches them come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. And once you realize that, you are free. Because suddenly, you no longer need to react to everything that enters your mind. You no longer believe that every thought deserves your attention. You no longer mistake mental noise for reality. You simply observe. You watch the mind do what it does, without being pulled into it. You allow thoughts to pass through you without resistance. And in that simple act, the act of letting go, you experience something people spend their whole lives searching for: stillness. Real, undeniable stillness. Not because the world has stopped moving, but because you have finally stepped outside the mind's endless need to control it. And in that stillness, in that profound silence, you realize something life-changing. You were never lost. You were never broken. You never needed fixing. You were simply buried beneath noise. But now you remember. You remember what it feels like to be fully present. To exist in the now without resistance. To move through life with clarity, without the weight of overthinking, without the heaviness of an unquiet mind. And here's the most incredible part. This silence is always available to you. It is not something you need to earn. It is not something you need to chase. It is not something you need to wait for. It is here, right now, in this very moment. And the only thing standing between you and this peace is the belief that it is not already yours. But now you see the truth. Now you know better. And once you have touched this silence, once you have stepped into its depths, you will never see life the same way again. Because once you know what it feels like to live without being consumed by thought, once you have felt the profound stillness that exists beneath the noise, you will understand the greatest secret of all. You were always free. You just had to remember. There is something almost indescribable about the moment you finally wake up. Not the kind of waking up that happens in the morning when your body stirs from sleep, but the kind of awakening that happens when you realize, truly realize, that you are not your mind, that you have never been your thoughts.
That all this time you have been living inside a dream, a movie, a constructed reality shaped by the endless unfiltered chatter of your own mind. And then, in an instant, everything changes. You feel it before you fully understand it. A weight you didn't even realize you were carrying begins to dissolve. The background noise that has been your constant companion, fears, worries, self-doubt, suddenly quiets, not because the world has changed, but because you have stepped outside of the illusion. Because that's what it was all along, wasn't it? An illusion. All the times you convinced yourself that you were not enough. All the nights spent over-analyzing things you could never change. All the moments lost to a mind that refused to be still. They were never real in the way you thought they were. They were stories, mental projections masquerading as truth. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of something vast. A silence so deep, so untouched, that it almost feels impossible. And yet, it is not foreign. It is familiar, like an old friend you had long forgotten, because the truth is, you have felt this before. Think back to those rare moments when time seemed to stretch, when the world felt more vivid, more alive, more real than ever before. Maybe it was during a sunrise, when the sky melted into colors that words could never describe. Maybe it was standing by the ocean, listening to waves that had been crashing for centuries, long before you arrived, and would continue long after you were gone. Maybe it was during a quiet evening, sitting with someone you love, no words spoken, just the presence of another soul, the feeling of simply being. Those moments were not accidents. They were glimpses, fleeting reminders of the stillness that has always existed beneath the surface of everything. Moments where, without trying, without forcing, you slipped through the cracks of thought and into pure presence. And now, here you are, no longer stumbling into those moments by chance, but stepping into them with awareness. Because now you know, now you see, now you understand that this silence, this peace, was never outside of you. It was not something you had to go searching for. It was not something you had to earn. It was who you were all along. The noise, the chaos, the endless thinking, that was the mask, the distraction, the illusion. But this silence, this is real. And what's even more astonishing, the moment you settle into this stillness, the moment you stop fighting for control, stop grasping at thoughts, stop chasing answers, something happens that you never expected. Life begins to reveal itself to you in a way it never has before. You start noticing things that were always there, but were drowned out by mental noise. The rhythm of your breath, the way sunlight spills through a window, the distant laughter of a child playing outside, the feeling of your own heartbeat, steady, present, alive. And with that awareness comes something even deeper, a knowing, a quiet, unshakable understanding that you are part of something greater, that you are not just a mind trapped in a body, struggling to get through life, that you are not separate from the world, not isolated, not alone. You are life itself. You are the stillness behind the sound. You are the presence behind the thoughts. You are the awareness behind the experience. And for the first time, maybe in your entire life, you feel it, not as an idea, not as something to believe, but as something that is undeniably true. You are not your thoughts. You never were. You are the one who watches, the one who observes, the one who exists even when the mind is silent. And once you see that, once you truly understand that the noise of the mind is just passing weather, and that the sky beneath it, your true self, is always clear, always open, always infinite, something shifts in you forever. You stop identifying with every passing thought. You stop reacting to every emotion as if it is the absolute truth. You stop believing that every fear, every doubt, every passing worry has power over you, because now you see them for what they really are. Just clouds in the sky, just ripples on the surface of the ocean, and beneath them, the vast, untouched stillness that has always been there. That is what you are. That is what you have always been. And once you know this, once you truly, deeply know this, you are free. Free to move through life without being trapped in your own mind. Free to experience every moment as it is, without judgment, without resistance. Free to exist fully, completely, deeply. And what happens then? Everything changes. Because now, instead of being lost in thoughts about the past, instead of worrying about the future, instead of feeling trapped in cycles of overthinking, you are present. And when you are present, life opens itself to you in ways you never imagined. Conversations become richer because you are actually listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Food tastes better because you are actually tasting it, not eating while distracted by a screen. Music moves through you because you are not just hearing it, but feeling it. Everything, every moment, every experience becomes deeper, fuller, more alive. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Because now, you are no longer living inside your mind. You are living inside this moment. And this moment, this is where life has always been waiting for you. And now, something even more extraordinary happens. As you settle into this new awareness, as you fully step into presence, you begin to realize that life itself has a rhythm, a flow, a movement that has always been guiding you, shaping you, carrying you forward, not through struggle, not through force, but through something far more natural, something effortless. For so long you believed you had to fight against time, against circumstances, against yourself. You thought you had to figure everything out, to plan, to analyze, to constantly control the unfolding of your life. But now you see the truth. Life does not need to be forced. It only needs to be allowed. Look at nature. The river does not struggle to reach the ocean. The trees do not worry about how they will grow. The wind does not hesitate before it moves. Everything flows effortlessly, simply because that is its nature. And you are no different. There is an intelligence, a wisdom, an order to life that has always been guiding you. It is what made your heart beat before you even knew what a heart was. It is what breathes you without you having to think about it. It is what has kept you alive through every challenge, every moment of doubt, every time you thought you wouldn't make it. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still standing. And now, for the first time, you truly feel it. That force, that intelligence, that flow. It is within you. It is who you are. And the moment you stop resisting it, the moment you stop letting the mind convince you that you are separate from it, is the moment your entire existence shifts. Because now, you are no longer swimming against the current. You are moving with it. And life begins to unfold in ways you never imagined. Opportunities appear, not because you force them, but because you are finally in alignment with them. Answers come, not because you chase them, but because you are still enough to hear them. The right people, the right circumstances, the right moments, they begin to find you. Not because you are controlling life, but because you are allowing it. This is what happens when you step beyond the noise, when you stop letting the mind dictate your experience, when you stop believing that you are separate from the flow of life itself. This is what it means to truly live, not to exist inside a cycle of endless thinking, endless worrying, endless grasping, but to experience life directly, to see, to feel, to be. And now you understand what few people ever do. Happiness was never something you had to find. Peace was never something you had to earn. Success, love, fulfillment, these were never things you had to chase. They were always here, always waiting for you to be present enough to receive them. And now, in this moment, you are. The mind will still try to pull you back. It will still whisper its doubts, its worries, its endless questions. But now, you see it for what it is. Just noise, just a passing cloud in the vast sky of your awareness. And you are the sky. You are the stillness beneath it all. You are free. And so you walk forward, not as who you were, not as the restless mind trapped in cycles of thought, but as something entirely new, lighter, freer, aware. You move, not as someone who is searching for peace, but as someone who has already found it. Because now you understand that peace was never something external, never something that could be given or taken away. It was always inside you, hidden beneath the noise, waiting for you to remember. The mind still speaks, but now it is only a whisper, a distant echo, no longer the master, no longer the force that controls you. You see it for what it is, a tool, not your identity. And in this new state, something fascinating happens. The things that used to consume you, small annoyances, passing frustrations, the weight of imaginary problems, they begin to lose their grip. The things that once seemed so important now feel distant, like waves dissolving before they ever reach the shore. You realize that much of what you used to worry about was never real to begin with. Just thoughts, just illusions, tricks of the mind convincing you that the past and future were more important than the now. But now, you have stepped beyond that. And as you do,
you begin to experience life as it was meant to be lived. Have you ever truly listened to the sound of the wind? Not just heard it, but listened. Felt it wrap around you, move through you, as if it were speaking in a language beyond words? Have you ever really looked at a flower, at the way it stands, unmoving yet fully alive, completely at peace with its existence? Because now, in this silence, everything takes on a new quality. The world is not just something you pass through. It is something you are part of. And now, you begin to see how much you have been missing. How many meals have you eaten without tasting them? How many conversations have you had without truly hearing? How many sunsets have come and gone while you were too lost in thought to even notice? But now you see. You are here. Fully, completely, undeniably here. And with that awareness comes something even deeper. A sense of gratitude so profound, so unshakable, that it changes the way you move through the world. You begin to appreciate things you once overlooked. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the feeling of cool air filling your lungs, the simple presence of someone you love sitting beside you. No words needed, just the shared existence of two souls, breathing in the same moment. This is what life was always meant to feel like. Not a race, not a struggle, not a never-ending battle against time, but a dance, a symphony, an unfolding masterpiece that you were always meant to experience fully, without resistance, without distraction. And now, in this silence, you see that everything, every joy, every sorrow, every moment of your life was leading you here. to this exact place, to this exact understanding. And you realize something incredible. You were never lost. Even in the moments when you felt disconnected, when your mind was a storm of doubt, when you thought you had fallen too far, you were still being guided. Every step, every challenge, every lesson, it was all leading you to this realization that you are not separate from life. You are life. And now, as you breathe in this truth, you understand the greatest secret of all. You don't need to do anything to deserve peace. You don't need to earn it. Don't need to prove yourself worthy of it. You only need to allow it, to step into it, to remember that it was always yours. And now, as the world continues to move around you, as life unfolds in its own rhythm, you walk forward, not as someone seeking peace, but as someone who has finally returned home to it. There is a profound shift that happens when you stop fighting against life and start flowing with it. It's not something that happens suddenly, like a lightning strike, nor is it something you achieve after years of effort. It is something much simpler, something so subtle that most people overlook it entirely. It is the moment you finally understand that you were never separate from peace. You only convinced yourself that you were. For years, you believed that peace was something to be earned, something to be reached after you fixed everything, after you accomplished enough, after you became someone better, stronger, more successful. You thought peace was a reward waiting at the end of a long road, and so you ran, chasing, striving, believing that one day, if you worked hard enough, you would finally deserve it. But now, after everything, after all the searching, after all the struggling, you have come to realize the truth. Peace was never something outside of you. It was never something distant, never something separate. It was always here, waiting for you to be still enough to notice. And now, you see it clearly. The noise, the distractions, the endless rush of the mind, they were never barriers between you and peace. They were only the illusions of a restless mind, a mind that was always searching, but never stopping long enough to see that what it was looking for was already there. Because peace is not something you find. It is something you return to. It is something you remember. And now that you have stepped into that stillness, now that you have experienced what exists beneath the chaos, everything feels different. The world moves at the same speed. People rush past you in the same hurried pace. But something has changed within you. You no longer feel pulled into the storm of overthinking, no longer feel the constant pressure to prove yourself to a world that never stops demanding more. Because now, you know the secret. There is nothing to prove. There is nothing to chase. There is nothing to earn. There is only this moment, and it is already enough. And the more you settle into this knowing, the more you realize that the things you once thought were so important no longer hold the same power over you. The worries that used to consume you, the fears that kept you awake at night, the anxious thoughts that wrapped around your mind like chains, they all begin to loosen, not because the world has changed, but because you no longer believe in their urgency. You begin to see thoughts for what they truly are, passing clouds in the vast sky of your awareness, temporary, fleeting, without real substance. You used to mistake them for reality, used to believe that every thought that entered your mind demanded your attention, your energy, your belief. But now you see that thoughts are nothing more than echoes of the mind, appearing and disappearing like waves on the surface of the ocean. And you are not the waves. You are the ocean itself. And with this realization comes something even more powerful. the ability to move through life without resistance. You stop grasping. You stop controlling. You stop fighting against what is. And in doing so, you discover something unexpected. Life begins to flow effortlessly, without force, without struggle. You begin to trust in the natural rhythm of existence, the same way the rivers trust the path that guides them to the ocean, the same way the trees trust the seasons to bring what is needed at the right time. You no longer feel the need to control everything, because you have finally realized that control was never yours to begin with. And as this surrender deepens, you start to experience life in a way you never have before. Everything feels sharper, more alive, more real. The way the morning light filters through the trees, the quiet sound of your breath, steady, present, alive, the feeling of warm air against your skin. These are things you have seen and felt before, but now they carry a depth, a richness that was missing before. Because now you are actually here for them, no longer lost in thought, no longer missing the present moment by being trapped in the past or future. For the first time, you are experiencing life directly as it unfolds without interference. And then something even more profound happens. You begin to feel a connection to everything around you, not in a vague, philosophical way, but in a way that is deeply felt, undeniably real. You realize that the boundary between you and the world, the separation you always believed in, was never real. That everything, the air, the sky, the people passing by, is part of the same fabric, the same flow, the same existence. The idea that you were ever alone, that you were ever isolated inside your own mind, suddenly seems absurd. You were never separate. You were never disconnected. That was only another illusion, another trick of the mind. And now, with that illusion gone, you begin to feel something that is beyond words. A stillness, yes. A peace, yes. But also something deeper. Something that can only be described as coming home. And this changes everything, because now you understand that peace is not something fragile, not something that can be disturbed or taken away. It is not dependent on circumstances, not affected by the chaos of the outside world. It is you. It is your essence, your foundation, the unshakable core of your being. And once you see this, truly see it, you cannot unsee it. The mind may still whisper, thoughts may still come and go, but you are no longer controlled by them. You watch them rise, watch them fall, but you remain still, anchored in something far deeper than thought, far more real than the fleeting noise of the mind. And as you move forward, as life continues to unfold, you carry this knowing with you. You no longer rush. You no longer force. You no longer live as if you are running out of time, because you understand that the only time that ever truly exists is now. You live fully, not because you have mastered some secret, but because you have finally let go of the illusion that there was ever anything missing. Because now you know the truth. You were never lost. You were never broken. You never needed fixing. You only needed to remember